Today, we're getting back to the fundamentals of off-roading. No big tires, no lockers, just a stock Jeep, knowledge, and a beautiful place to go explore. I am just outside of Idlewild, California, and I am taking Recon One out for the first time on the trail. I'm out here with Luna, and we thought today would just be a great time to talk about the basic fundamentals of off-roading. Go through some of those things that if you're going off-road for the very first time that maybe you have questions about or maybe you're a little apprehensive about, and just share the things that I have learned over the last many years of off-roading. I used to be on the board of directors for the San Diego Jeep Club, and the mission of the San Diego Jeep Club was to take new off-roaders out and teach them how to explore in their off-road vehicle, go have amazing times, but learn the fundamentals. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are craving this knowledge and they have a little bit of apprehension about coming out here for the first time. So what I hope today to do in this video is share some knowledge and build your confidence just a little bit. I think one of the biggest mistakes new off-roaders make is thinking that they need to do a bunch of modifications to their Jeep or their off-road vehicle before they come out here and have an adventure. And that's not true. If you buy a Jeep or a very capable off-road vehicle, you got to get out and use it as it sits in stock form. You've got to get to know the vehicle before you start modifying it. And what you might find is it's actually capable enough for the type of trails and off-roading you want to do. Or you'll realize, you know what, I need to lift it, I need to put bigger tires, but you don't want to do any of that stuff until you've at least got some seat time on the dirt in your Jeep. So that's very important. But before we get out here on the dirt and start having a lot of fun, there's a few things we need to do on our checklist. One is you need to get underneath your vehicle, and you can do this in your garage, in your driveway. It doesn't need to be out here on the trail, and get familiar with the low points. There are a few things under there that you need to pay attention to, like your differential, which is that pumpkin looking thing on your axles, which is generally one of the lowest points in your vehicle. And when you're out on the trail, the last thing you want to do is smash that into a rock. There's also some control arms under there, which are part of your suspension that attach to the frame. There's the frame rails, and then there's the shock mounts. How low does all of that stuff sit? It's very important to know kind of where all that stuff is, so when you're out on the trail and you're getting ready to go over a rock, you need to know, you know what, I'm not sure that my vehicle can get over that rock, and maybe I need to go around it. Or what's usually the best case is put a tire up on that rock and get it up high, and that way everything clears. But in order to understand if you can get over that obstacle, you first have to understand what's underneath your vehicle. You don't need to memorize everything. You don't need to know what the specific name is of everything is under there, but you need to have a good idea of where everything sits and how high or low it is off the ground so you don't smash into things. And listen, I've got lifted vehicles and I have a pretty good understanding of what's under there, and still from time to time I'll hit something. So you just have to have some knowledge and you got to be careful. Next, before you come out here, you have to know where here is. And so how do you find the first place you go off-road? Well, one way is to sit down on your computer or get on your phone and pull up the onX Off-Road Navigation app. It's the app that I've been using for many years, and they are the sponsor of today's video. You can find this exact trail on onX. It's Black Mountain Trail, and it's rated a 1 out of 10. And there's already a lot of information about this trail, but I'll just tell you that, one, it's not like a flat, easy dirt road. There's a few ruts and you climb up a mountain, got some beautiful scenery, and as we go further down, there's a couple little obstacles that we can kind of navigate through and learn our vehicle and how it performs. It's great to get out and just go on a flat forest road, but you won't learn your vehicle that way. You need to get out and at least start to kind of get familiar with, you know what, okay, there's a little rock I got to get over, or there's a little hill I've got to go down or climb up, and start using some of the fundamentals of your vehicle. So using onX Off-Road is a huge asset. Plus you can record it and share it with friends. I'm going to leave a link down below where you can get 20% on onX Off-Road. Yeah. It's a great app, guys, but we still got more to do before we get out on the trail. Now let's talk a little bit about gear really quick. There are lots of things that I bring, but there are only a few things that you really need to bring. Let's talk about if you're going to go out with a club like the Jeep Jamboree Club or your local club. Most of the time, they're going to want you to have a fire extinguisher and a first aid kit at the bare minimum. You need to make sure that you have these no matter what. They should just live in your vehicle full time. And if you need a first aid kit, you can head over to TrailRecon.com and pick yourself up one of these trauma vehicle kits. But I carry a lot more stuff, and you got to decide what's the right thing for you. Now, I have Luna's little bag here, and this has got all her goodies in it. I've got a cooler full of water for me and her. I've got a toolkit back here. I've got an air compressor because we're going to air up at the end of the day, and we'll talk a little bit about airing down here in a minute. And I've got some recovery gear. That's kind of the basics that I just take with me all the time, even when I'm out here for just a day. Let's talk a little bit though about coming out here by yourself versus coming out with a buddy versus coming out with a club. I would really discourage you from going off-road your very first time by yourself. You can do it, and you can make sure you're prepared if you have all the things and you know where you're going and somebody knows what's going on and you've got communications and all those things. I've been off-roading for many years, and I come out here by myself a lot, but I have a lot of experience, I have a lot of confidence, and I'm a little bit over-prepared. I would discourage you from going off-road for the first time by yourself. Do it with a buddy who's got some experience off-roading and wants to share some knowledge with you, or even better, go out with a club. Find a club on Facebook or go online and search your area, or look up one of the Jeep Jamborees and see if they've got something going on, because when you can come out to a place like this with an event with experienced people, you're going to have a much richer experience and you're going to feel a little more at ease. Let's be honest, there's a little bit of anxiety the very first time you come off-road because there's just that unknown. The more and more you do it, the easier it'll get, the more confidence you will get. But in the meantime, go out with some people that have experience and ask questions. The people in our community love to help. That's my experience, and I love helping people that have never done this before. If you ask questions, even if you think it's a stupid question, just ask, because the last thing you want to do is get out here and find yourself in a situation where you're feeling really uncomfortable and scared. You don't want to do that. Ask some questions. And when you get up to an obstacle and you're not sure about the obstacle, well, being with somebody else means they can help spot you through and make you feel more comfortable and a little more confident about your vehicle. So I'm not saying don't come out here by yourself for the first time. I'm just saying I discourage that a little bit. Next, before you come out here, it's time to pop the hood. And if you've never done that, well, now's a great opportunity to pop open this and give a good look under here. It doesn't matter if it's a new vehicle or a used vehicle, you should make sure that you're doing regular maintenance, your oil change and everything that the manufacturer recommends. But it's also important in here to just come in here and do some inspections. Make sure that your coolant level is where it should be, your brake fluid. Make sure you've had a new air filter recently. And if you're going to be off-roading often, that's something you're going to want to change a lot more than the regular interval, including your oil. You're going to want to change that out a lot more as well. Doing regular maintenance, doing some visual inspections. You don't have to be a mechanic, just the basics. And getting under here and just kind of peeking around a little bit and getting familiar with your engine bay also helps to know, like, if something goes wrong, if something's broken, if you spent a little bit of time under here, that you kind of know what normal looks like. So maybe if something abnormal is happening, you might be able to hone in and be like, that's not right. It shouldn't be like that. So make sure you pop the hood and give it a good inspection, and make sure you do all your maintenance. Next, let's talk about one of the most important things in your off-road vehicle, and that is your tires, because that is what makes this vehicle go on this dirt. And before you come out here, you should do two things. One, do a visual inspection. Make sure that they're in good condition and that you have lots of tread life left. Shouldn't be coming out here with like half tread life or tires that need to be replaced. You don't need big, massive, aggressive tires to come out here, but you need tires that are in good condition. The other thing you want to do is check your lug nuts. Make sure they're on there and they are torqued down properly. That's the last thing you want to have happen out here, is have a wheel fall off. And yes, that's happened to people before. So make sure that you're doing a good inspection. And now that we're out here, it's time to air down these tires. Airing down is important for a few reasons. One, you're going to get better traction on the trail, and two, you're going to get a little more comfort on the trail, which is going to be nice. You're going to want both of those things, especially if you're out here for several hours. Airing down your tire, you don't need a special tool. You just need a tire gauge and something to deflate the tire with. What PSI to drop to? Well, there's a lot of variables that go into that. I'm going to tell you that I am just under 20 PSI air down right now. That might be right for you and your vehicle. It might not be. If you have a really heavy vehicle, you want to avoid going low PSI. If you have bead locks and your vehicle's light and you're going to be going slow, then maybe you can go down to 10 or 15. You got to be careful. The last thing you want to do is go too low. Like let's say we're running 10 PSI, we go over an obstacle, you can actually bust a bead where it gets a little more challenging. Thankfully we have a full-size spare, which yes, you should have, but you don't want to go too low of tire pressure. You want to go somewhere where it just feels comfortable and it's giving you nice traction. And it might be one of those things, the more times you come out, you kind of play with. Maybe the first time you go out, you go to 25 PSI, and the next time you go to 20. You're going to have to figure that out. And again, going out with a club, maybe somebody that's got a vehicle just like yours, they can tell you what they're running. Now, before we fire up the Jeep and shift it into four-wheel drive and go hit the trail, there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and that is attitude. Attitude out here and in life is everything. And you got to come out here with the right mindset, a positive attitude, looking forward to the adventure, looking forward to whatever challenges may come, and making sure that you're not allowing yourself to get frustrated or stressed out, because that can ruin your entire day and it can ruin the day of other people around you. If you find yourself getting stressed, just slow down, take a couple deep breaths. If you are going towards an obstacle and you're not feeling confident about it, stop, ask for help, and then allow yourself to breathe, relax, and remember that this is just part of the learning experience. It's part of the adventure, and it's all going to come together, and by the time it's all said and done, you're going to have made an amazing memory. So, attitude is so important out here. The time has come to start the vehicle and put it into four-wheel drive, and there's a couple things to talk about while we're doing this. The most important is read your owner's manual. It will tell you exactly how to properly shift your specific vehicle into 4 high and 4 low, and how to use all the off-road modes, which this doesn't have. But every vehicle, even Jeep to Jeep, is going to be just slightly different. But what I'm going to do is talk through a little bit about how I shift this vehicle into 4 low and 4 high, and that will help you maybe as you're getting ready to do your specific vehicle. The one thing that I want to mention is some vehicles have multiple selections for four-wheel drive, meaning you'll have a 2-wheel drive, you'll have a 4-wheel auto, and then you'll have a 4 high. 4-wheel auto is basically the vehicle decides when and when not to send power to the front. They're a great system. But what I like to do is when I'm out on the trail is to be in 4 high, where it gives me a specific 50-50 split of power from the front to the rear. I don't want it deciding how much power it's going to get to the front. I like to know all the time when I'm on the dirt, I've got the same amount of power to the front tires and the same amount to the rear tires. Being out here in 4-wheel drive is going to give you a lot of traction. It's going to give you a lot of confidence. There's nothing macho about I'm off-roading in 2-wheel drive. There's certain situations when you may want to be in 2-wheel drive, but most of the time if you're on the dirt, just being in 4-wheel drive is the best way to go. Let's talk a little bit now about shifting into 4 low. You're going to come up to an obstacle, whether that's some rocks, some ruts, a hill climb, a hill descent, and 4 high may get you through that, but being in 4 low and allowing the transfer case to work for you and allow the torque of the vehicle's gearing to work for you is going to be better. Now, you're not going to go fast when you're in 4 low. You're going slow, but you're going to be able to really kind of navigate your way through something much easier. Or if you're coming down a hill in 4 low, it's going to help slow the vehicle by engine braking. If you're going up a hill, it's going to give you just that little bit of extra torque to maybe get over some of those things. To get into 4 low, it's a little more tricky. You don't just shift that lever right down like you do from 2-wheel drive to 4 high. You've got to put the vehicle in neutral, most vehicles, and then shift this lever into 4 low. Sometimes it'll just go right in. Sometimes you need to be just inching forward like 2 miles an hour, and then as you're pulling that in, it'll just drop right in. Those gears will line up and it'll just pull right in. You'll get to know your vehicle the more you do it, and I encourage you to get out here, and even if you don't need 4 low, practice shifting into 4 low and out of 4 low just so you have that experience and it becomes a little bit second nature. All right, let's go hit the trail and see what we can find. I don't think we're going to find a whole lot of obstacles, but we can talk through some things. One piece of gear that I now need to get is some kind of rear seat cover for the back. Luna is a hot mess. She's all dusty and dirty, and that seat is destroyed. If anybody has a recommendation on a good seat cover for a dog, let me know. We're gonna kick it off with a nice little descent right here. It's not super steep, so I'm gonna shift into neutral, come on down, and it went right in, which is perfect. Again, sometimes you might just have to inch forward to get that to go in. And now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna let the vehicle do most of the work. I'm not gonna try to get crazy. And one mantra to live by when you're off-roading is slow is smooth. You don't wanna hammer through things. You don't wanna go super fast. That's when things break. That's when you lose traction. That's when mistakes happen. Once we come off the obstacle, then we can shift back into 4 high. Now you can stay in 4 low depending on the situation. If you're gonna be going slow and easy and going over lots of obstacles and climbing stuff, you can stay in 4 low. In fact, an example is like the Rubicon Trail. You're in 4 low pretty much the whole time. So there's situations where that's fine. There's nothing wrong with just staying in 4 low as long as you're not gonna be going fast. We're gonna be going kind of modulating our speed on this trail, which is beautiful and scenic, by the way. I love being out here. One thing I wanna mention is your seating position. It's very important to make sure that you can see well. I mean, it's nice to be back and hanging out and all comfortable, but when you're on the trail, I like to have my seat raised up a little higher than I normally would so I can see over the hood, over the fenders. I just got a good line of sight around the vehicle, especially if you have, you know, a Bronco or a Tacoma where you have a full hood. Sometimes it might be hard to see over that hood, and putting yourself in a good position is helpful. It's nice that the Jeep has the low fenders because it makes it easy to see over the hood a little bit better. The other thing out here is you just have to be observant. You can't be lollygagging. You've got to be paying attention to the terrain. You got to be paying attention to what's coming up, paying attention to other vehicles and how they're doing, paying attention to vehicles that might be coming in the other direction, and then figuring out how do I have to maneuver on the trail to either get past them or to allow them to come past me. We've done a whole video on trail etiquette, and I will leave that video link down below if you want to go watch that. We're not going to dive into etiquette. We're just going to dive into the fundamentals of being out here off-roading today. Something else that's good practice while you're driving is keep both hands on the steering wheel most of the time, but keep your thumbs out of the inside of the steering wheel. You don't want to wrap your thumb around. I typically drive just like this, and that way if you hit an obstacle, you hit a rock, that steering wheel can spin faster than you think it will. And I've had it happen before where I wasn't paying attention and I was gripping the steering wheel the way I shouldn't have, and it got me. It bit me pretty good. And so if you just practice keeping your thumbs pointed out, they won't get stuck in there. But having a good grip on the steering wheel, you don't need to like white knuckle it, but making sure you got positive control of your steering is very important. Now let's assume you're out on the trail with a group of people, or at least one other person. You want to give yourself some good distance between that other vehicle. You want to maintain line of sight always, but you don't want to crowd them. And I will say that people on YouTube sometimes aren't really good about showing that because we're always trying to get the shot, and so we try to kind of smash vehicles together when we're out on the trail. But the truth is, when you're out here, you really want to give yourself some extra space. You don't know if that vehicle is going to have to brake suddenly, if they're going to have a mechanical failure. Who knows what's going to happen? They could slide off the trail. You don't want to be too close to that situation where you're becoming a risk or a hazard. And it's just nice because if somebody is following you and they're following too close and you have to brake suddenly, it kind of makes me nervous. I've actually had to politely ask folks, can you just give me a little extra room behind me? There's nothing wrong with having those conversations. I think it's important to make sure that you're comfortable and safe out here. So give yourself a little bit of extra room. The other thing about that vehicle that's in front of you is you really want to watch what they're doing and how their vehicle is maneuvering through obstacles. Being able to watch another vehicle and how they take a certain obstacle, whether it's a rut or they're climbing over a rock, will give you a good idea of how you might want to approach that. Now, if it's some built rig and on 40-inch tires and they're just smashing through stuff, well, you're not going to want to follow their line necessarily. You're going to want to be a little more thoughtful than that. But if it's somebody that's in a similar vehicle or somebody that knows that you're new and they're taking the time to show you the right line, it's really helpful to just like focus in and watch, okay, I saw where they put their tire and I saw how fast or slow they went through that. I'm gonna kind of do the same. here's a good section to stop and talk about for a moment. So on the right here, I've got some jagged granite rocks, and there's another one right down here, a little smaller one. And then on this side is a tree that's fallen, and you can see that the end has been kind of run over several times. But you come down a little bit further, there's some really sharp branches that are sticking out. When you're going through this stuff, this is where you really want to slow down. And if it's tight, you might even want to ask somebody to watch, because the last thing you want to do is tear up a sidewall with some granite rock, or have one of these sticks grab a hold of your sidewall, and then you've got a flat, and then you're doing a flat tire change right here on this hill, which wouldn't be a whole lot of fun. So just being attentive to these kind of obstacles as you're navigating around is important. Again, you got to watch your surroundings, guys. I mentioned this trail is called Black Mountain. So we are on a mountain, which means we're kind of hugging the side of it, a little bit of a shelf road, nothing crazy. I mean, look, this is at least 1.5 vehicles wide, and there's plenty of spots here for people to pass, but it's still a shelf road. And my personal fear in life that I have no control over is heights. This doesn't bother me because it's a nice, safe, wide trail. There's lots of trees, but there's been times like Black Bear Pass where, you know, I've really had to slow down, and I had to really kind of manage my stress a little bit. The more you do this, the easier it gets and the more comfortable you get. But even on a nice wide open road like this, you still want to take your time and go slow. I mean, look, the possibility of losing traction and ending off on the side, or hitting a bump and getting your suspension unstable, it could happen, or going too fast around a corner. So you just got to make sure that you're being mindful, you're being safe. There are hazards out here, and they're real, but if you are safe, if you're cautious, you're paying attention, you're gonna be just fine, and you're gonna have an incredible time out here. One thing you should practice your first time and every other time until it becomes natural to you is driving with 2 feet, meaning your right foot is on the gas and your left foot is on the brake. Now, if you're a manual transmission, well, you'll have to figure that one out. But what that allows you to do is really modulate the vehicle so much better. You can be so much more smoother through an obstacle, or through a rut, or over a rock. You're just allowing the vehicle to just inch its way over something, and you can do that by applying a little brake and a little gas. And you'll just, as you do it and you practice more, you're gonna see, oh wow, I'm really smooth doing it that way. It takes practice. If you go from gas pedal to brake, sometimes things can get pretty jerky, and that's not what you want. You want your suspension to be settled and working evenly over something. You don't want the vehicle bouncing around. And so practicing 2-foot driving can be a very, very useful tool to have out here. I don't do it all the time. I usually only do it if I'm going through an obstacle. So here's a little bit of a rough, rocky section, nothing hard, but this is a good spot where I'm glad I aired down, because it makes things a little smoother, and I'm going a little slower. I don't want to just bounce through all these rocks. I could, but that's not good for the vehicle. It's not good for the trail. And oh, by the way, there's a shelf road right there. So I'm just taking my time through this. All right, I stopped on the side of the trail here because I think it's a good teaching moment. There's a little bit of an obstacle here on this descent down this hill. There's a turn here, and we have a couple options of which line to take. And I want to talk through these here for a minute, because I think this is one of those situations where if you were out here for the first time, you'd be like, I'm not really sure. So on the left, it's mostly smooth. There's some loose rocks, but then there's some deep ruts at the bottom, and then there's a sharp turn going over there. In the middle, there's a variety of rocks and ruts. So going over this may hit a rear differential over one of these rocks if we wanted to go right in the middle. I think the best option would make come a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. Get your tire on top of some of those bigger rocks. On the right is probably the most challenging line, because there's a big dip to the right, and then there's a dip to the left, and there's kind of 3 rock obstacles, and one of them is in a little dip right there. I'm gonna go and do the hardest one, because one, I wanna show you what the best line is to take there. We could take the easy line, but that doesn't teach you anything. And 2, I'm trying to figure out what Recon One can and can't do, and I'm gonna see if we can get over that. And then I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna come right back up this, because I wanna see how the Jeep performs coming up. I wanna see if that limited slip differential kicks in. Now, I'm gonna go into 4-low for this, and ideally, we would have disconnected our sway bars earlier today. I didn't do that because we're on an easy trail. But this is a good situation where if you hadn't disconnected your sway bars, to do it now, because that'll give you a little more articulation. I'm not gonna do that, so this is one of those situations where just do as I say and not as I do. All right, we're gonna go tackle this. Now, as you get more and more experience, something like this won't really even faze you. In fact, it doesn't look very dramatic, but it's enough that you could find yourself hung up if you're not careful. So I'm gonna put my tire up high on this rock on the right. Let's see if we can just, yeah, you can hear a little bit of tire slippage, and that's okay. And I'm in 4 low, and so I was able to navigate that pretty well. I'm off camera there a little bit. That rear tire dipped down, the right one came up. The left tire dipped down, the right one came up, but no problem. All right, I want to turn around and go up that just to see how the Jeep performs. And I know this looks super easy, but I came out here with Regina a long time ago, and she was driving her Jeep, and she was still pretty new to off-roading. And I remember her getting on the radio and asking me, do I need to do anything special through here? Should I, take a certain line? So we talked through that a little bit. So I remember that moment. Yeah, I came up, no problem, easy day. So that's not a crazy obstacle, but it's something that you might encounter when you're out here on an easy trail, guys. So what do? You come out here and now you see an obstacle in front of you and you're just not comfortable that you can get through it without damaging or getting stuck. What do? Well, ask for a spot. And don't be afraid to ask for a spot. I actually enjoy spotting people through something because it helps me practice my spotting skills. But one important thing to mention about spotting, only one person should be telling the driver what to do. I've been in situations where you get 3 or 4 people and they're all yelling and all saying things, and it makes the driver very uncomfortable. There should be one spotter and one person. And so if you find yourself in that situation where more than one person is trying to tell you something, you can thank them, but be like, I'm just gonna listen to him right now. And if you see something unsafe, then shout it out, but I'm gonna allow this person, him or her, to spot me through there. That's important. And spotters that are chiming in when they shouldn't be chiming in, you know better. So now we're just slowly going down the trail. It's a little rocky, a little bumpy, and I've opted to stay in 4 low because the transfer case is keeping me from just flying down the hill. I'm still using my brakes just a little bit, but I'm able to take it nice and easy, which is perfect. I'm coming up to another obstacle, and since I'm already in 4 low, it makes it pretty easy. Not a crazy obstacle, just a little drop off, a couple little ruts. Again, we're going downhill, which is hard to show perspective of, but yeah. Jeep getting a little bouncy. I probably could have gone a little slower through there, but no problem. And what I mean by got a little bouncy is I went too fast through there, and so the suspension did kind of a double bounce, which is not what you want. You want the suspension to compress and then re-extend itself. You don't want the vehicle bouncing around because then that makes things a little unstable. So the slow is smooth. Go slow, guys. Take your time. Up ahead here, we've got some small ruts, kind of a dip to the left and a dip to the right. These are very small. Again, we're on an easy trail, but it's a good point to talk about keeping your tires high once again. You don't want to drop into the rut if you can avoid it. You want to try to straddle it or go around it. I think what I'm going to do here is just kind of show you what I mean by straddle. So the rut is now right in front of me. I kind of came up high to the right. I could have easily gone left and just avoided it, but if this was all I had, then I try to put that deep rut right in between me, because if you get too off camber, it makes steering kind of hard and things are going to be a little uncomfortable. So you got to just pick your line and go slow. All right, here's something that first-time off-roaders don't usually appreciate, and that's sometimes when the trail gets tight. And you hear that? Yep, you're gonna get a couple pinstripes from time to time. You try to avoid them. Yeah, but every once in a while, you're gonna get a branch or something that's gonna reach out and grab your vehicle. Thankfully, most of the time, that stuff can be buffed out. It's hard if it scrapes plastic, but if it's on the actual paint of the vehicle, usually you can buff it out with no problems. I've never had one just like gouge the paint so bad that it couldn't be repaired, but it's also a good reason why you might want to carry a saw with you, because if you encounter a branch that's gonna be pretty hefty and you can't get through it, it means you either got to turn around, you got to suck it up, or you got to cut it off. just one of those things you got to be ready for out here. You know, your vehicle is not going to stay perfect. You're going to have bumps and bruises and scratches. The first ones are usually the worst. There's some really nice camp spots out here that I hadn't paid attention to before, but I've been taking notice of today. I would definitely come back out here and camp. We're pretty deep into the mountains. I've only seen one other person today, and yeah, it's been really great. Now, I've tried to not be overly dramatic today. I wanted to share some information with you and just show you a few little obstacles. But we're gonna take Recon One out on a moderate trail and a difficult trail and keep getting it dirty. And hopefully Luna won't get quite so dirty next time. But if you are a new off-roader and you still have questions, put them down there and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you're an experienced off-roader and you're still hanging around this video and you've got some tips or tricks or suggestions for a new off-roader, put it down below as well, guys. I've had a blast today. It's been so much fun riding around in a stock Jeep. And now Luna has found a twig that she's crunching on down there. She's as happy as could be. It's been a great day, guys. Until next time, safe travels.